Welcome. Thank you for coming. I'd like to just start by appreciating the Buddhafield team and everybody who's just spent so much time and effort just putting this whole beautiful, beautiful space together so that we can just be here and feel our feet on the grass and, come to Dharma talks and dance and stuff. And I'm in a slightly strange position because I don't really agree with talks. Because in a way what I find is that with talks, I mean they're valuable in their own right, but they kind of tend to, I find, put people into a sort of automatic pilot mode, like a sort of, just kind of lie back and think of England sort of mode. And to me that's kind of, in a way it's not actually of the nature of awareness, which is what this talk is about. And hopefully what I want to do in this talk is try to sort of explore what the nature of awareness is, but somehow to try to sort of maybe bring it to life a bit. So in the first half of the talk I'll be doing it'll be slightly workshop-y rather than just listening. So I hope, leave now if that's not okay. But I hope that'll be okay with you. So yeah, on the little strap line in the talk it says that when I was 11 I very carefully and beautifully, as you do as an 11-year-old girl, with lots of beautiful crayons and colours, picking up the vibe, the 70s vibe, the hippie vibe, peace and love, man. Wrote it very, very beautifully, crayoned it all, little stars and little swirly bits, and put that proudly on my door, because that's what I was about. And then a few days later, after a row with my sister, I wrote on a sheet of paper in pencil, private, probably spelt wrong, keep out. And it was only some months later that some friend of my dad was around and kind of pointed out the kind of incongruity of it. And I did feel quite ashamed, actually, at the time. I noticed, I was like, I hadn't actually noticed that these two sentiments were somehow contradictory to each other. But sort of reflecting about it later, I thought, well, in a way, it sort of captures sort of the existential conundrum of being human. That on the one hand, we have a sense, an intuition, a knowing of what love is, what connection is, what peace is. There is, we wouldn't suffer so much if we didn't somehow know that it was there, it was available, there's something else available. And at the same time, we're kind of born into this kind of evolutionary being that we are, which actually is kind of programmed for survival. So programmed to protect me and mine, my resources, water, whatever. Evolutionarily, in order to just survive, we need these impulses which are about self-protection. Keep off this, keep off mine. So it's kind of interesting thing that's the conundrum that we're in, that we know one thing, but we exist in a being that's actually almost designed for something else, but yet can know love, can know connection, can know who we are. So that's kind of a funny conundrum. So I just kind of wanted to explore that conundrum. And what I've been really, in the last sort of 6 months or so, I've been exploring awareness after I've been meditating for 24 years, and I've been ordained into the Triratna Buddhist order for 10 years, and all of a sudden it feels like as things do sort of come round in cycles, all of a sudden I feel, I don't know, I'm a beginner again. What is awareness? And suddenly getting very inspired and energized by awareness and what it is. And that's partly through 2 books that I've been reading, which I would recommend. One is Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha, an unusually hardcore Dharma book. It's very, very readable. And then this book, which is called Life with Full Attention, which is by Maitreya Bandhu. Both are really excellent. And also I went on an MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, 8-week course. And also in my chapter, we've been studying this book. So I'm kind of really going for it in terms of this whole thing about trying to get closer to whatever this thing is called awareness and attention. And one of the things I listened to recently was a talk about, on the Radio 4, as I'm driving along the car, I love listening to Radio 4, and it was someone talking about drugs for cancer, for treating cancer. And they kind of talked about the fact that at this particular point they're finding all these genetic predispositions of cancers. Before they thought that all breast cancers were the same and all this cancers and all, different parts of the body, those cancers were the same, and now they're finding that it's not about where the cancer is located, but something, partly some of them are kind of genetically inclined. And it was sort of saying how all the treatments, everything that we know about treating cancer now as a result of this insight about it, it's almost as if it's in the Stone Age. It's like, how do you mean you can you're treating the same cancer with the same drugs, where actually, different cancers need totally different drugs. And it was just really struck me, that thing about how all of a sudden a revelation about something can just make how you were used to do something seem totally kind of past it and just like, in the Stone Age. And so what I'm kind of hoping is that by really thinking about the whole thing about awareness and mindfulness and nature of awareness, that we begin to evolve more better ways of talking about it, thinking about it, teaching about it, so that we can get it more deeply, more quickly, we can understand it more. So that's what I'm just hoping, that the exploration, this talk, will kind of just be part of that, that sort of clarifying, deepening understanding of it, because it's quite a big topic. So anyway, I thought I'd start with 2 questions. One is, what is the nature of awareness? And what is your relationship to awareness? And how I'd like you to think about that is just, if you just sort of just close your eyes for a moment, and just notice your response to these questions. So I've just asked 3 questions, and I just want you to be looking for whatever automatic, natural response occurs as a result of these questions. And then once you've done that, I'll ask you to actually turn to a partner and just share what your findings were in doing it. So, first question is, how aware are you? Just notice what your mind says about that. Okay, next question. And again, just notice what your mind says. Don't try to figure it out. Just notice what's already there in your mind about it. How aware would you like to be? Notice what your response is. And third question is, what is the journey from non-awareness to awareness? What's the journey from non-awareness to awareness? Okay, so having clocked your responses to those three things as much as you can, just turn to someone in the room, and I'll just give you 5 minutes, sort of 2.5 minutes each, just to share with the person next to you, what were your responses to those three questions? So this might be a little bit tricky with the technology, this next part, but I'd just like, if anyone would like to just to share what they noticed about that question. What did you notice was in your mind about your relationship to awareness? Just take a few from the floor, as it were. Then I can repeat them back. Yeah.
I'll just go. It slightly mirrors your paradoxical thing on the how aware would you like to be. Well, I'd like to be more aware, but my first instinct when I get more aware, it's painful because I'm aware of painful stuff.
Right. Right. So I want to be aware, but I don't know what I'm going to be aware of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Uncomfortable. Okay. Yeah.
The way I thought I'm too aware because I feel all the things that I don't really want.
Ah, so it's a thing of, I don't want any more awareness. I'm already too aware. Awareness equals pain. Interesting. Who else? What did you notice?
I noticed I was saying, I don't know, and what a stupid question this is. I want to just be aware, not think about it. So I just kind of went into an experience of myself rather than thinking.
So you associate thinking about things with not being aware.
Well, the voice was a bit distracting, was a bit kind of harsh, unaware. Interesting. Who else? Anyone else? Yeah.
I realised that my awareness is like some fence, very much an awareness of danger, much more than I would have thought until you asked the question.
So for you, awareness shows up around danger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything slightly surprising that kind of popped in? Yeah.
I was quite surprised to have ambivalence pop in. You know, first thought was, well, very, all the time, definitely. And ambivalence. It came up around, it might get in the way of productivity and being in the doing. And actually, if I was more aware, I might need to slow down or pace myself or stop occasionally. So that's what felt like it get in the way of what I'm trying to get down to.
That's interesting. So again, it's sort of something similar, that it might be if you stop enough time, it might become painful or difficult somehow. It involves difficulty.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anyone else? So that's interesting, isn't it? That for quite a few people, did that resonate with other people? That's how. Well, there was a bit of an ambivalent attitude to being aware. No, for some of you not, for some of you, yeah. So it kind of struck me in thinking about it, of what the nature of it was, what the nature of awareness is, that it had something of the resonance of art, or what the nature of it is when we think about, say, anything to do with any of the arts, like painting or music or making things, making beautiful things, there is something for me in the nature of awareness that is something to do with that. So I just thought we might just explore that for a little bit. And I don't know if I'm sure we've got artists in the room. If we can have just a little bit of, just some words about what it is to make art, or to be a musician, or to be, in the field of the arts. What are the qualities? What is it that they all have in common with them? What would you say?
There's no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong. Okay, yeah.
For me, if I'm doing anything creative or artistic, I very much like to feel like I'm creating something that's beautiful.
Right.
It doesn't matter what modality, I like to create
Right. So there's something about an intention to create something beautiful. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
Being very present, absorbed.
Absorbed and present. Yeah. Yeah.
Something about not doing things according to a formula, but coming sort of fresh. So, say with life drawing, you have to be really engaged and not have an idea of what it is you're looking at, but actually be looking and coming to the brush.
Yeah.
It's a different sort of awareness because I'm completely absorbed and lost, but I'm also not aware of time or anything else going on outside of what I'm focused on.
That's interesting. So there's a kind of a narrowing of awareness in some ways to the broader perspective, but a more intense awareness to what's immediately there.
And I always feel happy afterwards, after that.
What else is involved in art?
My experience was just the opposite. So later, it's anguished and it's difficult, it's frustrating, and it comes out of almost like an edge. It's too comfortable or too it's difficult.
So it's also, there's an element of difficulty about it. Yeah, yeah.
Courage.
Takes courage. Can you say a bit more about that?
Expressing something and feeling.
Expressing something of you.
There's a sort of vulnerability as well. Very vulnerable. This is something I think you may not get it, you may hate it, you may stand there and say you hate it, not know I'm standing behind you. You know? And have I communicated it? Have I actually succeeded? So I think it's a real vulnerability. This is something that's very, it's kind of personal, but it's got to be universal. It's got to be able to go out and get to other people.
So it's painful, vulnerable. Why is that? Why? What is it that it's doing? What is it that it creates that edge there? What's happening? What's occurring in that moment of creation, of attention, of what's occurring in there? What's happening?
Something about taking me somewhere unknown.
Taking yourself into the unknown. Yeah.
I can feel like it's like a coming home, and like meeting myself, touching something part of myself that's really deep and essential.
So it's deep and essential versus what? Because there's a vulnerability and an edge and an uncomfortableness, and yet there's a sense of coming home. And then you said happiness and sort of. So, what is it pushing up against?
I think that a lot of art can be a search for truth, and you're quite aware when you're creating art when there's something that's inauthentic.
So what is inauthenticity? What's that? The thing of
that
inauthenticity.
Can be partly the difficult thing that you don't know, and as you're creating something, are aware that it's a copy of something else, or whether it's something original. And it can also be linked to the search for beauty as well.
So there's this a copy, something inauthentic that's a copy, it's not real, versus something that feels that it's personal, that it's alive, that it's communicating something. If we try to sort of create the distinction between those two realms, what else might we be able to see in the difference between the two? Because in a way, I think actually there is, in that difference, there's something in the nature of peace and love, private keep out, somehow.
I feel that, I was going to say we, or say mine, it's mining what's really in here, and then it's putting it, the edge is you're putting it to other people to see if they resonate, and there's a kind of offering what's really going on for you. Then that's quite...
Right, but even before the offering, even if, say, you weren't going to offer it out, what is it that what is it that is doing that's different? What are you working against in a way in art, or working towards?
Sense of self, just hunger for more responsive, freer, bigger perspective.
Yeah, something in a sort of the habit, something in the habit that we are, the kind of conditionedness, the kind of inauthentic, the copy aspect, and then there's something trying to push through, which is trying to communicate something different. That's not necessarily in that realm of, just who we always know ourselves to be. That aspect of us that's just on automatic pilot, just doing who we know we are, on lots of different levels. Yeah. So my sense is that, in trying to sort of get close to what this thing is of awareness, is that in getting close to what awareness is, there is some of these qualities of trying to create an authentic response, in amongst the conditionedness that we are. So there's something about it that is like that. And in a way, it has to be created, and it has to be. So it's like the atmosphere in the room now is one of sort of aliveness, engagement, kind of questioning, versus a sort of sitting back and kind of just being on automatic pilot. And there's something about it that's slightly uncomfortable. Can you feel that? It's not. I mean, some of you might feel comfortable, but it's not just kind of in neutral, It's sort of somehow there's a sort of engagement about it. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of maybe point to that a little bit, that that awareness and the art of it takes us into the realm of moving against that stream of automaticness and of receiving things. And I was just trying to look at what are some of the other things that I thought were in the nature of awareness. So one was intentionality. Someone sort of mentioned that, the intention to create beauty, the intention to be aware. In a way it's kind of counterintuitive, because I think it's very natural to want things to be, to kind of just go with what's already there, versus to try to create something different. And I think every time we make a choice to be aware, we don't know what we're going to find. So it is, slightly uncomfortable, but it is a kind of, every time we are wanting to be aware, we have to kind of make that choice to be aware and bring ourselves to whatever it is we want to be aware of. So in that sense, it's a kind of sense of being generative as opposed to narrative. Something has to be switched on, something has to be generated, rather than just allowing that narrative of our minds to just keep going, because it just, we wake up, we don't choose to go, oh God, it's Monday morning, why don't I get up, there's this automatic narrative in our minds that we wake into, that we have no real choice about. It just goes on and on about this, about that. Oh, you're looking a bit old today. There's that narrative, and that we kind of get for free. We just turn on the radio. We don't have to work for it. We don't have to pay for it. It's just there. The nature of awareness is something that's different. It's not It's not just there, you know. It's not the default screensaver. It's something that you actually have to choose to do, choose to bring. And then I thought it's also the nature of transformation. It's transformational. My profession for years, I've been a trainer, a workshop leader and a coach. And it never ceases to amaze me that, because all of those things, basically what they're doing is they're creating a space, they're creating a holding ground in which someone can be aware. Because our normal way is not to be aware. That's the easy, automatic thing, is not to be aware. To be aware takes a holding. So, you know, that's why people have consultants come into their organisations and actually say, you know, and there's nothing really that they know any better than anyone else, really. You know, the truth is, you know, they pay loads of money, but the truth is they don't really know that much more. But what they're being paid for is that thing of creating a container, stop and be aware of what's going on. What's going on in the organisation, actually? You know, what's going on in this team? What's going on in this person? You know, stopping and holding enough to be able to look and become aware. And then the beauty of awareness is as soon as you stop and look, it's like pretty obvious what needs to happen. Oh yeah, you know, no one's taking any lunch breaks. Oh yeah, you know, most people are whatever. You know, it's like just like, oh yeah, it was always there. It was pretty obvious, but because we weren't paying attention, we didn't see it. And you know, as a coach, you know, you're phoning. You know, I'm on the phone to people and say, okay, well, all I'm asking questions of what they already know. So what would you like to work on, you know, what would you like to work on this week? I've got to think. What is important to me today, this week? It's this. And, you know, how would you like it to be? How would I like it to be? Oh, well, I'd like it to be like that. All it's just bringing awareness. And then it's like, oh, that's what I'd like to do. And then, so what do you think you need to do in order to get there? Well, I could start taking lunch breaks, you know. And it's like, wow, I get paid, you know. And it's nothing that you don't already know. Nothing that you don't already know. It's already there, but you know, against the grain of our asleepness. We're just asleep. So it takes some space of holding, you know. Good way to do it. Well, good way to wake up is to pay people your money, and then they'll, you know, then you're like, I've got to get value out of this. So I better wake up and pay attention. So yeah, to me, it's the nature of transformation, because when you do pay attention, things get transformed. You know, things change. You see things that you didn't see before, that were always there, but now you're seeing them. And by seeing them, then you can take some kind of action. So the other thing I thought, it was of the nature of being developmental, if that's a word. So in other words, it's a skill. And within the Buddhist path, within the Buddhist framework, really the container for learning, for paying attention, for learning to pay attention, is meditation. And recently I've been thinking about it. This book is very much about meditation being more goal-orientated and map-orientated, which is interesting. It's a sort of, I mean, just taking myself, you know, my first, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years of meditation, I'm someone who has been very much out of myself. Most of my life I've been very much just out. My attention has been fixated very much in the outer world. I didn't have very much of an inner life. So a lot of my work in the first sort of 5 years of meditation was literally just trying to bring my awareness and just kind of almost stitch it into my body. You know, just stay here. And I just remember, you know, doing the mindfulness of breathing and having to sort of draw a big one right here, you know, to try to 1, 2, you know, just trying to keep myself in my body, you know. But somewhere along the line, I kind of stopped believing that it was actually possible to really get to 10 ever. I don't know if anyone else feels like that. It's just me. I kind of started believing that it wasn't really. It was, you know, you just keep bringing your mind back, and that's good. That's all you need to do. Just keep bringing, and that's what's important. And it doesn't really matter if you don't get to 10. You know, it's okay. And I've kind of had a bit of a rethink about that, really, and I've realised that I'd like to think about meditation more in a sort of very kind of simple, pragmatic way, that it is like a skill, because that's something we didn't actually mention when we talked about the arts. You know, to be good at your art does take developing skills. You know, you develop skills in drawing, you know. There are skills to drawing, there are skills to painting, there are skills to, you know, if you play the piano, you start with the scales and you play them, and then gradually you play a simple tune. My daughter's learning the piano, and, you know, she's done it for 3 years now, and she's really, now she can really play quite a complicated tune, and that's just from doing sort of 10 minutes of practice a day, you know, over the last 3 years. And I thought to myself, well, is my meditation practice like that? You know, do I know that I'm doing my scales and I'll be able to play in 3 or 5 years' time, I'll be able to play something really beautifully different from in 5 years before, you know? And the answer was kind of yes and no, a bit of a mushy yes and no. But I've kind of taken on board a kind of a different way of relating to it, saying that actually being able to hold, being able to pay attention, being able to have that container that I talked about, like in the coaching relationship, or, I mean, there's loads of, you see, in a sense, there's loads of new things emerging, and what they're basically bringing to us, bringing to the market, or bringing to us, is that holding of awareness. So if you think of focusing, I don't know if many people have done focusing, it's very much about the other person in the dyad, is holding your awareness of your own body, or you know, I don't know if you know the work of Katie Byron. You know, these questions: is it true? Do you know that it's true? How do you know that it's true? Those are all mechanisms for holding us so that we can be still for long enough that we can see something that we didn't see before. You know, if you say something like, "I really hate my mother," and you think, well, is that true? And you have to kind of really hold yourself in that awareness. Is it really true? You write it down, and how do I, you know, can I absolutely know that that's true? Holding yourself in that awareness, looking, because the automatic thing is just to think, yeah, my thoughts are true. You know, yeah, I hate my mother, but is that really true? So it's all of these things that are emerging are ways of being held in a container by other people somehow, or by practices. But meditation is the practice where you're holding your own container. So I've just sort of become more interested in actually that art of being able to pay attention to what I want to pay attention to. Consistently, that's a skill, and it's something that I've developed to the level I've developed it, but it could be developed a lot more. And there are maps, you know, to help us in terms of that, how our awareness is, and you know, there's things that I used to know about in the early days, but I kind of lost track of them. But I'm kind of getting more into them. Like, you know, when you're beginning to get more concentrated, there's a recognizable phase of meditation called neighborhood concentration. And then as you develop the ability to stay present for longer, there's neighborhood concentration. And then if you got to the next stage, then actually something different starts emerging called the first dhyana, where actually you start experiencing a lot of physical pleasure in the body, contentment, happiness. These are all stages of having worked on and developed the skill of being able to pay attention to something. And in a way, the reason that meditation is so sort of central to the Buddhist path is that we're trying to discover reality. We're trying to see things as they really are. So not just, do I really hate my mother, but the real nature of existence. And without that ability to pay attention, to be held in that attention, and to be able to be with whatever comes up in that attention, which won't always be pleasant. It won't always be pleasant. It won't always be easy. But if we don't have that sort of muscle that it takes to keep bringing ourselves back to what's actually going on, we won't be able to stay with it and stay with it and stay with it and stay with it until, aha, we see something new, something that it's always been there, but we just didn't see it before. And the seeing of it completely changes our relationship to reality. I don't know if any of you have seen the film Inception. Anyone seen the film Inception? No one's seen the film Inception. Oh. It's a great film, isn't it? And to me, in a way, that film kind of demonstrates the layers of, it's about going into people's dreams and having to go down 3 layers of consciousness in someone's dream and turning a particular view around 4 layers down of consciousness, and the kind of attention, the kind of focus, kind of determination that it really takes to do that. It really is an adventure. It really is a action-packed movie, of daring, determination, and grit to actually get down there. Because there are a lot of things that we might find that aren't very pleasant. But have we got this? Have we got the courage? Have we got the strength? Have we learnt the skills to be able to get to that place and then look at it? And there's that wonderful image of the Vajra chopper, or Vajra, what's the one that pins thing down, the Vajra Purba, yeah, that where you actually pinning something down and looking at it. And if you really pin something down and look at it clearly enough, then what happens? What happens? When you're able to pay attention for long enough, what do you see? What happens? Yeah. What does it? It dissolves. It transforms. It's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. But in order to be able to see that, it is contingent on that skill of awareness. So it's intentional, it's transformational, it's developmental, it's a skill. And finally, it's revolutionary. Revolutionary. Because in being aware, we break down the automatic habit of wanting more, better and different. More, better and different. More food, better food, different food. More, better, different. Our habitual survival pattern is to want more, better and different of everything. But when we truly are able to pay attention, then, and it's sort of bringing it back to the theme of abundance, that when we're truly able to pay attention, then, one mouthful of cake is actually more than enough. We don't actually even often taste the other mouthfuls of cake. The first mouthful is pretty much as good as it gets. In all areas of life, a lot of our suffering is this chasing after something more that we think is just beyond our reach. The grasping. So when we pay attention, what becomes apparent is how overloaded our senses are. So there's something about paying attention that also brings us back to simplicity, brings us back to not having to have so much. So that's on the one side, but ultimately it's revolutionary because attention is the faculty that allows us to see through ignorance, see through the way that we see things, which is not in accordance with reality. So I used to be quite irritated that the Buddha's last words were, with mindfulness, with awareness, strive on. I'd be like, oh, because I'm such an unmindful person myself. It's like, and there's something about mindfulness that, I can just find sort of irritating, annoying. So I used to be quite irritated by that. But now I kind of have a bit more space for that, a bit more like, oh yeah. Okay, that is, awareness, that ability to be aware, to pay attention, to be with things. That is the faculty, that is the ability that that we need in order to move forward, to move ahead on the path. So I hope that I've explored a little bit about awareness. I mean, it's a huge subject, and I hope we've had a little bit of a flavour of a question. I hope to leave you with more questions, because I think questions are much more of the nature of awareness than answers. So that's it.